Imagine a person who enters a match saying they just want to play for a while. But as soon as the game starts, something changes. Their breathing speeds up, their hands tense, their attention becomes absolute. They are no longer just playing, they are measuring their worth against the outcome of that match. That is what often happens in the mind of a try-hard. From the outside, it looks like someone exaggerated, a person who takes a video game too seriously, someone who turns a casual match into a life-or-death competition. But from a psychological perspective, a try-hard is not simply someone who wants to win. It is someone who has built a very intense emotional relationship with performance. To understand this, we have to start with a basic human need, the need to feel competent. Human beings need to feel like they are improving, mastering something, gaining control over their environment. In real life, that control is often limited. You can try hard and still fail. You can do everything right and still not be recognized. But video games work differently. The try-hard finds in the game a space where effort seems to make sense, where every decision matters, where every mistake has an explanation, where every victory confirms something. I am capable. And that is where the problem begins. When a person ties their self-esteem to their performance, the match stops being just a match. It becomes a personal evaluation. Winning no longer just means winning, it means having value. It means being good. It means proving that you are above average. And losing no longer is experienced as a simple defeat. It is experienced as a threat to the ego. That is why many tryhards react with extreme frustration, not necessarily because they are bad people, but because their emotional system interprets defeat as something bigger than it really is. For them, losing can feel like humiliation, injustice, or proof that they were not enough. A common form of protection is blaming others. My team is trash, the game is broken, the opponent got lucky, the matchmaking is unfair. These phrases are not always born from logic. Many times, they come from a psychological need to protect identity. Because accepting "I lost because I failed" can hurt too much when your personal value is tied to the result. A healthy competitive player can lose and learn. A tryhard who is emotionally trapped loses and breaks down internally. Competitiveness itself is not bad. Competing can teach patience, strategy, frustration tolerance, and teamwork. But when competition mixes with insecurity, the experience changes. You no longer play to grow, you play to avoid feeling inferior. That is where obsession appears. The tryhard doesn't just want to improve, they feel like they have to improve. They don't just want to win, they feel like they must win, because every defeat opens an internal question. What if I'm not as good as I think? What if others are better than me? What if all my effort means nothing? This is where a key element comes in: dopamine. The human brain learns to repeat behaviors that generate reward. In video games, those rewards are constant: points, ranks, skins, sounds, victories, progress bars, statistics, and recognition. Everything is designed to tell the brain, keep going, you're close. But the most powerful thing is not guaranteed reward, it is variable reward. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you get close, sometimes you make an incredible play, sometimes you fail by very little. That uncertainty keeps the brain engaged. It's the famous one more game. One more game to recover lost points, one more game to end on a positive note, one more game to prove that the previous loss doesn't define who I am. And without realizing it, the person is no longer playing for pleasure, they are playing to regulate an emotion. They get frustrated, they play to relieve that frustration. If they win, they feel better. If they lose, they feel worse. So they play again. The game becomes both the problem and the solution at the same time. This doesn't automatically mean there is an addiction, but it can show an unhealthy relationship with performance, validation, and emotional control. There is also a social component. In many gaming communities, being good gives status. Rank, KD, win rate, or level function as symbols of identity. They are not just numbers, they are signals of belonging and respect. The higher the rank, the more authority a person seems to have. That is why some tryhards don't tolerate playing with beginners. They don't tolerate wasting time. They don't tolerate simple mistakes. Because in their mind, every mistake from others puts something they feel is theirs at risk. Their progress, their image, their control, and their validation. But behind that irritation, there is often fear. Fear of failing, fear of looking bad, fear of being average, fear that all their effort means nothing. The tryhard often has a complicated relationship with mediocrity. For them, being normal can feel like failure. It's not enough to participate. It's not enough to have fun. They have to stand out. They have to dominate. They have to prove something. So the tryhard is not only competing against other players, they are competing against an internal version of themselves that never seems satisfied. Because even when they win, the calm doesn't last. Soon a new goal appears, a higher rank, better stats, a cleaner play, a stronger opponent. The standard constantly moves. What felt enough yesterday is no longer enough today. This creates a psychological trap. The person chases a feeling of being enough that never fully arrives. That is why a tryhard can win and still feel upset. They can have good stats and still feel frustrated. They can be better than most and still feel like it's not enough. Because the problem is not always the level of skill. Sometimes it's the emotional relationship with that skill. The question is not, why do they want to win so much? The real question is, what do they feel they lose if they don't win? When a person understands what they are emotionally defending, they can begin to play with more awareness. They can remain competitive without destroying themselves. They can pursue excellence without confusing a bad result with a bad identity. And this goes beyond video games. There are tryhards in school, at work, in the gym, in business, and on social media. People who don't know how to slow down because they feel if they stop proving themselves, they stop having value. The video game only makes visible something that also exists outside the screen. In the end, a tryhard is not just someone who tries too hard. It's someone who, without realizing it, turned the result into a mirror.